Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for watching the Engine25 YouTube channel. We're back with our final Book of Boba Fett review. We're going to be talking about the whole season, comparing it to The Mandalorian, talk about what we like, what we don't like, how we feel about Star Wars these days, which may not be the way we felt about it when we were kids. Anywho, if you're as big a nerd as us, please hit that subscribe button down below. I try to get an episode out once a week. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for now, let me introduce our panel. What's up? What's up, guys? You guys know, or anyone who's seen the other Boba Fett episodes and a few of the others, you know my buddy Adam. We go way back. He's a huge Star Wars fan, just like me. I've got up in the top left over there, my buddy Chase McCallum. He's a theater friend from back in the day, and he daylights as an uncertified cybernetic surgeon. And we've got up above my head, we've got Peter, who we used to play Star Wars X-Wing. Just pushing little plastic ships around on a table, rolling a lot of dice, and he's a droid motivator specialist, apparently. What's up, guys? Adam, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a nice day. It's gorgeous down here in southern Georgia because it's perfect.
Yeah, it's really nice up where I'm at too. It's just yesterday and today, it's right around 55, 60 degrees. It feels real nice in the sun. There's a nice breeze. It's absolutely nothing like being on Tatooine. Chase, what's going on with you, bro?
What's up, all you cool Wampas and Wookiees? It's hot out here in the Dune Sea.
It is.
Just everyone's dying. But if you tough it out, you might find a little black melon in the sand, and then it's all worth it.
I'm curious about these. You just dig anywhere, you could find a melon. Isn't water supposed to be hard to find? Yeah.
That's what the dogs
are. Like I said, this nerf herder above me is Peter. What's going on, dude?
Howdy. Just happy to be here. I've been watching Brandon putting on his YouTube stuff for a while, and I thought, well, I really like Star Wars and I have opinions. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you watching the show. You didn't tell me that before we started. So that's good. But okay, before we talk about Boba Fett specifically, how's everybody feel about Star Wars? We were all probably introduced to it very young, and some new stuff has been coming out that's had its ups and downs. Generally, I'm more, or I'm not, I don't know if I'm more positive than most people, but I am generally positive for the most part on most of it. But Chase, what's your read on the whole Star Wars thing in 2022?
What a loaded question, because there's to me there's not a simple answer as to like if Star Wars is good or not. There is so much to like about it. There is so much about it that is deeply flawed. But overall, I really like Star Wars, right? Like it's just got such good bones that it is able to survive so many missteps for decades. I mean, it is an incredibly resilient
We're coming up
franchise.
on 50 years.
Yeah.
45 years in 2022. Yep.
That's an impressive feat for a flawless franchise to boast. But considering the reception the prequels got, which I think they've aged favorably. I think I watch those movies now and I'm like, those are really good. Maybe I just needed to sit with them for 15 years to get them. But the Mandalorian has breathed new life into the show. The Clone Wars show has been kind of the new standard that they're hanging their hats on, that is feeding so much of the lore and everything now that they've kind of removed the extended universe and everything. It's an exciting time to be tuned in. So I'm up on Star Wars. I'm bullish.
Nice. What about you, Peter? What's going on with you these days?
Yeah, so the prequels, I literally came out of the prequels crying when I was like a teenager, because they took this thing that was gritty that I really liked, and they did it with terrible CGI and pratfalls, and so I had this really, really low period with Star Wars during the prequel era, and I kind of walked away. And then we had this quiet time, we had the quiet time between the prequels and like Rogue One. Well, I guess
Force
there was
Awakens.
one between there. Yeah.
Still a quiet
So-
time.
But we had quiet time. And during that time, I really went back into the imagination part of Star Wars. And kind of like Chase was talking about, it was that bones of Star Wars. It was, fast ships, dangerous people, kind of dirty stuff, more of a romance than sci-fi. And that's when my love of Star Wars really came back. And so I was pretty hopeful with Force Awakens. I loved the opening. I'll watch the opening to Force Awakens sometimes and then just stop. Because that scene with Rey in the Star Destroyer,
Oh yeah.
that is Star Wars to me, right? But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Skywalker. What are we calling those last three films?
The sequel trilogy, I guess.
The
Yeah.
sequel trilogy. Not a huge fan. Loved Rogue One, and Mandalorian was like a redemption arc for Star Wars for me, because I said that is what I wanted Star Wars to be for the last 25 years. So I'm just gonna leave it there.
Nice. What? How about you, Adam? You and I talk more than the other guys do, but for the viewers at home, how are you feeling these days?
I like to be optimistic. I think there's more good
Me
than
too.
bad.
I agree. Is
I
that it?
definitely have some
Okay.
problems things recently, but I've made comments on previous shows, but in general, I was 10 when the prequel trilogy came out, so
Yeah,
right
me
in the
too.
target audience. I remember the merchandising for Episode 1. It's still one of my favorite Star Wars movies, just because that was what Star Wars became. I mean, I saw the special editions when they came out, but I was younger. Like, Episode 1 was really what kind of defined Star Wars for me when I really started to get into it. So I never minded the prequel trilogy as much as existing fans did at the time. And I agree. I think they definitely aged better than they were initially. They did age well, except Episode 2. Half of that movie is still hot garbage. But that's a whole
Ouch.
different discussion. But the sequel trilogy was a really weird roller coaster ride. The anthology films were not as much of a roller coaster ride, but it's been really weird. And
They should have stuck with the Star
again,
Wars anthology
all
name.
in all,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just a thing there for the folks who don't know. Before they renamed, or Rogue One, it was supposed to be Star Wars Anthology Rogue One, and then they changed it like shortly before the movie came out, and then it was Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and then Solo, a Star Wars story, or whatever. But I'm just gonna blame that on why we didn't get more of those. Just bad titles. That's why.
It wasn't the weak character development in Solo.
No, couldn't have been. Yeah, so I'm not far removed from what you guys are saying. Like, we had when I was real young, we had like the Star Wars VHS trilogy, and it was it was the really fancy box set that had like interviews with Leonard
know about
Maltin before the movies, and like it had that big commercials. Like, even though you've already bought it, there's this long, like a 3-minute trailer for the Star Wars trilogy, like your last chance to own the original version of the Star Wars trilogy one last time, like all that mess on the tapes you've already bought, like the thing. Anyway, and
It
then
was a strange move.
yeah,
But they had paid for that.
it's true. So they had to
And
show
they
it
weren't gonna
somewhere.
throw that away. Yeah.
And then the only special edition I saw in the theater was A New Hope. But I obviously saw each of the prequel trilogy movies, and me and Adam were the same age. I was almost 10 when Episode 1 came out. It came out in May, and I turned 10 in July, and it was like the perfect movie. Well, I don't know. There's but it was aimed at me, whether or not I wouldn't look back on Episode 1 today and say it's a movie for children, just because of all the political stuff that's going on there. Was way over my head when I was 10 even. But and there are there are certainly moments that I love about Attack of the Clones, like it's a little over 2 hours long, and the whole second half is like one continuous action thing, which is pretty awesome. Like right when they land, like when they get into that droid factory, and it's pretty consistent all the way through. They do the droid factory, and then they do the arena, and then they do the big battle where the clones show up for the first time, and it's Peter's shaking his head at me, but I'm in for it.
It's because of the arena. So I'm a little bit older than you guys. I was old enough to have a serious crush on Natalie Portman. That's beside the point. What is the point is you're in a dirty, dusty arena in a white jumpsuit, and none of it sticks to you. How did that work?
It's fabric.
You don't know what kinds of fabric they have.
That was. I tried to rewatch the prequels during my divorce, and I got to that scene. And I turned it off, and I just said, it's okay for me just to genuinely not like the prequels.
It is. And you know what? I love Star Wars. I like the prequels. That's okay. It's cool with me, Peter.
But I do want to mention one thing. My
Sure.
favorite starship is the Naboo N1. There is no cooler starship, and
It's a dope design, and apparently some other folks think so too, because it comes up in Boba Fett. But yes, and then right as we were getting into, or right at the end of my freshman year is when episode 3 came out, and I was like, all right, Hayden Christensen aside, like, this is the best Star Wars movie since Empire Strikes Back. Like, to this day, I would still rank episode 3 over Return of the Jedi. But maybe that's me. And then, the little bit of quiet time in between when I really liked the 2D animated Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars show. So when the Clone Wars first came out, the TV series, I watched a little bit of that, and I was like, all right, this isn't for me. It's cool. Like it was that first season especially was aiming a little bit younger, right? But after it had been on for several years, people were like, no, you got to go back and watch the Clone Wars. So, 2013, 24, right around when they announced that they were making new Star Wars movies, I went back and watched the Clone Wars TV show, and it's like, it's some of the best fiction in the whole universe is in that Clone Wars series. It is the masterful long-term storytelling, hiding under a cloak of a children's show. You know what I mean? Like was
that Dave Filoni, or was that?
That was Dave Filoni. Yeah. And when Clone Wars is good, it's really good. When it's not good, it's still for 5-year-olds, but that's cool too. I am of the belief that
after the first couple seasons.
Yeah. Like Star Wars is broad enough that it's okay that you have entertainment aimed at children and also have entertainment aimed at adults. Like, I'm totally cool with that idea. Like, we don't, maybe it comes from, it's okay. I think it's okay if you like some Star Wars and not others. And then, a few years after that, The Force Awakens came out. And I certainly don't think it's a flawless movie, but I love The Force Awakens. And my other issues with this, I have some issues with the sequel trilogy. I have some issues with The Force Awakens, but that is of all of the new content, that's the one I've rewatched the most. I absolutely adore Rogue One. It's probably, there's some, maybe we'll do an episode just on Rogue One at some point, because there are some weird choices, very specific choices in Rogue One that I think completely destroy certain scenes. Like Cassian's weird, are we done shooting yet? Look that when he opens his eyes seconds before he gets incinerated by the Death Star. Little moments like that are just weirdly take you out of it for no good reason. And maybe it's it's just me and because I look too close. But we are 4 years after, I am a Last Jedi defender. I think the Last Jedi is 2 movies that are stitched together, and one movie is about Luke, Rey, and Kylo Ren, and I think that movie is a fucking masterpiece. And
so do you want to cut of that one? Is that
I want that movie without all that other stuff, because the other half of The Last Jedi is a big weird mess, and it's just there are, and not to say it doesn't even have its high points, but there are just a lot of weird choices and a lot of choices that I also like. It's a big mixed bag.
Well, that's the same thing as Attack of the Clones is two movies stitched together. It's Obi-Wan in Star Wars true crime trying to track down Jango Fett, and that movie's fantastic. And then there's really awkward teenage drama played out by 30-year-old, 20-year-old of Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen, and that's really awkward.
You know, and that's fair. That's fair. You know, and we're taking a lot of time talking about things that aren't Boba Fett. But yeah. I'm sorry, Chase, were you going to talk?
Well, I've seen it said as that George Lucas has described Star Wars as silent films, and that makes a lot of sense when you pay attention to their dialogue, because the dialogue is really bad. But in these grand operatic movements of you know, good or evil, or how empires come to be, or you know, all these large themes, it's really excellent. And in terms of action, it's so good, right? I mean, it really is the quintessential space movie movies. And I mean, you know, if you watch like Obi-Wan and Anakin duel in episode 3, you learn more about their relationship than you learn from any of their dialogue. Right.
Yes. Well, oh God, we should. That's a whole episode. Yeah. Right. I agree with that statement completely.
But yeah, I mean, I think even George Lucas may realize that his dialogue ain't his strength. And yet again, Star Wars persists, right?
That's true.
It can survive a lot.
I have a strong opinion on this one, but I'm just going to let it pass.
Okay.
Most of the original trilogy was largely written by other people. George wrote the whole thing, and other people hacked it up to make the movies. There's the legend, I don't know if it's true or not, that Harrison Ford at one point reading his dialogue said, "George, you can write this, but you sure as shit can't say it." So
I think it is, because that's in the Empire of Dreams documentary. So yeah, like I think that's a real thing. So we got the Rise of Skywalker, which is And there are moments in the Rise of Skywalker that I adore. Like my wife and I went to see it. The movies come out on a Friday. We went to see it that Saturday afternoon, and like we were twice in the movie, we were bawling, like sitting in our, so like we had to let go of Leia, and then like the moment with Han and Kylo Ren like standing on the Death Star, like it definitely has its moments, but it's it's a thing. And then we had a few months off. And we knew this Mandalorian thing was coming, and we didn't know how that was going to turn out. And I think I'm of the opinion that the first season of Mandalorian has some big speed bumps, like particularly the middle episodes that don't really work for me, but season 2 is really great. And then they teased this Book of Boba Fett thing, and here we are. So, and Boba Fett is, of course, like there are this entire costume clubs, like just that exists solely because of Boba Fett. Like, and in the first little episode that Adam and I did for this show, like initially his whole appeal was because he looks awesome. Like, and he was in a parade, even before he was painted, like he was white, like a stormtrooper, and he was like conceived as a super stormtrooper or whatever before they developed him into a bounty hunter. But it's like, he's just walking down the street and they were like, "Who's that guy walking with Darth Vader? I want to know more about him."
Who did you think the coolest characters in Star Wars were? It's going to be a short list.
Darth Vader is the greatest villain in the history of cinema.
Yeah.
And I have his head up on my wall over here.
I mean, I think for most of us, there are different camps, right? There are Luke camps, there are Han camps, but like your second or third coolest character was going to be Boba Fett.
I mean, and that's fair. What do you think, Chase?
I feel like an outlier in that respect, because I know that's a very a lot of people feel that way. I never thought he was that big of a deal. He was kind of a side character, in the movies. And I wasn't plugged into, I understand he kind of debuted before he had even shown up in the movies. Back.
He was in the holiday special.
Right. So, people were already plugged in. And I think his action figure may have come out for beforehand. And so, people were hyped about him, but I wasn't a part of that. He was just another bounty hunter, just like all the other bounty hunters in those scenes. And it's like, I mean, yeah, they're all kind of neat alien guys. But do I even know his name just based on watching the movies? Probably not.
They say his name once, and it's in Return of the Jedi when Han Solo's like, Boba Fett? What? Where's Boba Fett? Where's Boba? And he accidentally hits him with a stick, and he falls in the hole.
And then, he dies pretty unceremoniously.
Well,
does he die?
I believe Darth Vader calls him out too, and
no disintegrations.
No disintegrations.
Right. Which that's something we can talk about in this show.
I'm go ahead, Adam. Again? Yeah, you got stepped on.
I was just that's why he stood out in the line of otherwise also cool bounty hunters, was because he was the one dude that Darth Vader of all people had to stop and go, don't do this.
Yeah, well, he's also the guy who didn't fall for Han's evasive trick with the Millennium Falcon to escape with the trash. So it's like, this guy, he's the best one. He's the best bounty hunter. So, and I guess that's something we can talk about in this show. I don't see that Boba Fett in this show, but
and that's an interesting note. And I wouldn't say I disagree. I will say that we got that bounty hunter, or that, we got that warrior person during his brief appearance in The Mandalorian, where he just by himself slaughters an entire troop of stormtroopers and then shoots down their escape their gunships as they're trying to escape from him, and it's just like, so I think there's a disconnect there even between these, the Mandalorian, which we all seem to really like, and this guy. And it takes place shortly after that, but apparently it's, I don't know, he doesn't seem to have the combat prowess as much in the Mandalorian or in the Book of Boba Fett for some reason, as he was even shown to have very recently.
No, he was pretty badass in the final
episode, but not before that. And you know what? There are even they touch on some stuff early on that I really like. I don't mind Boba Fett hanging out in the back to tank. And it's, I liked the idea that, oh shit, Boba Fett's still messed up from all the shit that's happened to him. But despite likely being in pain most of the time, he's still awesome. But we didn't get Boba Fett being awesome until episode 7. He gets his ass kicked in the premiere by the dudes with the shields. And then it's just like, all right, just drag me back to the back to tank.
Right. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I was just going to say, okay, maybe he was under a lot of psychological trauma, but we didn't get that, right? So there are legitimate reasons for a lessened Boba Fett, and those flashbacks that he's dealing with, if we had seen a broken character with serious PTSD, for example, and have a redemption arc over that first season, I mean, maybe even if you just imagine that, it becomes cooler. But yeah. What's up, Chase?
Well, I felt the same way. That could have been a thing that they leaned into, but I don't think they did.
And they really didn't. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that they even realized that they didn't, or even identified that this could have been a thing they could have investigated, because you see, when they're trying to get his ship back, and they're breaking into the palace, and Fennec Shan turns to him and she's like, "Nice moves," and it's like, what?
What did he do?
He hasn't done a single cool thing. And so it seems like the show expects you to be like, whoa, it's Boba Fett, baby, he's back. And it's like, he sucks. And it's not only in combat, it's also his decision making. He gets fooled by everybody. Everybody he ever talks to pulls one over on him. And Fennec Shand is like, are you serious? You shouldn't do this. And he's like, we will do it.
We're gonna do it.
I was like, okay, don't. I mean, what's the cool part? Why am I rooting for Boba Fett?
Okay, so we've talking about some specifics. How does, now that we've seen the whole show, that presumably this is a miniseries, it's not going to get another season. I fully expect Boba Fett to show up in more Mandalorian or some of these other live action shows. But how did we, Adam? What did you? I'm going to finish one of these sentences. How are you feeling about the Book of Boba Fett? Now, not like, kind of general thoughts, and we'll go back into some specifics. We haven't touched on that yet.
As a whole series, I feel a lot better than I did at the midway point, because we had some pretty worrisome some opinions at the midway point.
We really did.
And then the 2 extra episodes of Mandalorian happened. It kind of helped save the series. But I feel the same way now that I felt in the middle point, which was I think the show might have landed better if each 2-episode block, or maybe the first 3 episodes were cut into 2 movies, then you have a Mandalorian movie, and then you have the final battle sequence. And because there were arcs that bounced across 2 episodes that might have made it feel better and maybe made Boba Fett look less like a chump for the first, 6 episodes of the series?
Yeah, and this show certainly has some structural issues that we'll touch on. But, maybe that is some of the criticisms, whether or not that I think they're valid, some of the criticisms of the Mandalorian show was that, well, actually, I'd agree with it to a degree, but each episode is like villain of the week, kind of, like he goes to a place, he solves a problem, he leaves. And that's what most of the episodes are. And that, that becomes grating to some. And, and I would even, particularly of that first season, I would definitely aim that criticism at The Mandalorian. And maybe this is a response to that, but they did it by offsetting what should have been 1 episode and cutting it in half between 2 or something, so it could have just been 3, 2 or 3 episodes where, again, you have one mission, you solve a problem, you go to the next one. And this might have been a response to that, but ultimately I think it suffers because of it.
I think the show kind of is a farce on that structure too, because for the first 3 episodes, it's definitely Boba Fett I'm going to solve this problem, solve this problem, solve this problem. And then at the end, everybody fucked him over.
It's true. Where are you at, Chase? How are you feeling about the Book of Boba? General thoughts to start off with.
I really completely agree with Adam that structuring the episodes differently, even just combining them, would go a long way for several reasons. One, I think, that would line up better with the discrete kind of arcs, I guess, of the story. But also, when you're watching this show on a weekly basis, you're like, oh boy, a new episode comes out this week. Let's see what Boba Fett's going to do this time. Oh, nothing still, huh?
I want to mention that the weekly release schedule versus the Netflix method, but continue.
Right. Well, I mean, if you had just been able to binge the whole thing, one, maybe it wouldn't hurt so bad when all you do is see Boba taking L's for another week. And then 2, maybe you wouldn't be as critical of it because you would just be engaged in the whole show the whole time and take it in as one piece instead of criticizing each episode with a finer tooth comb. That's always how I feel about any kind of show that is, coming out weekly or if I'm listening to a podcast or something that comes out weekly versus binging it, it's always more enjoyable to binge it.
But I don't know that I would agree. My note on that topic is, the Netflix method, they dump 10 episodes of Stranger Things. We're talking about that, and Stranger Things is amazing. We're talking about it for a week.
Yeah.
Seven days, they drop the next show. Whereas, the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, the Marvel shows, we were talking about WandaVision for 2 months because there was a new WandaVision every Friday for 2 months. So it stays in the zeitgeist for longer. The issue, the flip side of it is, if you're going to drop your episodes one at a time, they've all got to be good.
Right.
Whereas if you dump 10 episodes at once, it's okay if you have a couple of weak episodes in the middle somewhere. It's easier to forgive than, damn, I've been thinking about this for a week and I don't, do I care to watch the next episode? Whereas, that wasn't so good, but I can just press play again and see if it gets better.
Can I throw one thing in here?
Absolutely, please.
So stream cycling is a thing now, streaming service cycling. I don't keep a streaming service all year long anymore. So the Netflix model worked great when we were all going to be on Netflix all year round, period. Right. And that was for a while. But Disney, I'm going to cancel Disney for a while until the next Star Wars thing drops. Because
I don't know, man. Moon Knight's coming out.
well, I'll just save that up.
Fair. That's
Yeah,
what I do
I mean-
with Paramount Plus. Is I wait for there to be a season of Star Trek, or the 2 Star Trek shows that they're running, and then I'll get 1 month of Paramount Plus, and I'll binge out Star Trek, and it's awesome, and then I'll cancel it. That's absolutely how I do it.
Sure. I can't argue with it being a good business move to do the weekly release schedule. I guess I'm coming at it more from the perspective of like what I care about more, which is like its existence as a piece of art or
Yeah, for sure.
storytelling.
And I'm with you.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. I didn't even think about of course, they should do the weekly release schedule from a business perspective. It's simply superior, it seems to me.
Well, I just, again, you have 2 months of WandaVision episodes, and if you really care about Wanda and Vision, that's 2 months you're gonna subscribe instead of 1.
I signed up.
Yep.
Well, even beyond the business point of view, there are lots of studies that show that viewer retention is a lot higher on a weekly release. If you binge a show, you're going to remember less of it than somebody who watched it a week at a time.
True.
Like, talk to somebody who binged Game of Thrones a couple years after it came out, and they won't remember half of what happened in the first 2 or 3 seasons because they binged it in a weekend. So,
Well, to be fair, the writers didn't remember what had happened in the first few seasons either.
This is a joke for another podcast. Oh God. Fucking Game of Thrones.
But I
generally, I like the weekly release. I think Book of Boba Fett is just one case where it should have been released differently, and maybe somebody should have watched it and gone, maybe this would be better if you could just watch the whole thing. But I think the risk of the weekly is you do start, all right, we've had a couple episodes. Do I care enough to keep watching? And then more importantly, we had 2 weeks where we didn't see Boba Fett. It was just The Mandalorian. They're the best 2 episodes in the show.
I watched them like so many more times.
And
I know.
I had multiple conversations with Star Wars fans, people who are already invested in the show just because of the setting. And we all like just jokingly looked at each other and said, is it a problem that this show is better when there's no Boba Fett and it named Boba Fett? And like, normally
Yes.
that might
The answer is yes, it's a problem. And we'll talk. I'll tell you why in a minute.
But that's where I'm not really sure exactly what that means, but I feel like I don't mind that Boba Fett's different than everything that we cared, or that all of the expanded universe and all that. But of everybody in Star Wars, of all of the characters, Boba Fett probably has the second most merchandise of anybody. Like, I've got to assume, I mean, I obviously don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of every piece of Star Wars merchandise, but Darth Vader's got to be number 1, and number 2 is probably Boba Fett.
I will say that there are 3 in this room. There are 3 Darth Vaders that I can see, and there are 0 Boba Fett's. But
right, but like, I would put money on there being more Boba Fett merchandise in the world officially released than things with Luke Skywalker's face.
Yeah,
that may
I
be
think
true.
that's
You have to license Luke Skywalker's face. You don't have to pay extra money to put the helmet on somebody.
Right, but that's why I said officially licensed, though.
Yeah. Well, you have to pay Mark Hamill to put Mark Hamill's face on an action figure. That's why faceless guys sell more toys.
Right, but Luke's also your main hero of the series.
That is also true. That's
like, and if we're gonna argue, like, do they have money to put money into merchandise? It's
the answer is yes.
Now it's both Star Wars and Disney. So, like,
do they have to pay Mark Hamill to put Mark Hamill's face on Mark Hamill?
Yes,
the Book of Boba Fett.
They absolutely have to do that.
I'm sure they do, and they should.
So, okay, we mentioned some structural stuff. Like, but before I move on to that point, my wife. She's a fair weather Star Wars fan. She's seen all the movies. She watches she loves The Mandalorian. two episodes of Boba Fett, she was like, man, I don't know that I'm into this. After the third episode, she was like, let me know if it gets better. I think I'm done. And then she didn't watch the next episode. And then, the episode 4 was, of course, when they break into the palace and steal the fire spray. And I was like, that was the best episode so far. But, she's like,
forgotten about that episode.
Yeah, that's, that's, it certainly had some issues like everything else in the show, but it's up until that point, it was the best one. And she was like, yeah, maybe later we'll come back to it. And the next episode was all about The Mandalorian. And she's like, damn it, I have to watch it now. And then we watched the next 2 episodes together, and then she was totally in, and we watched the finale together. But yeah, like she's there, she probably won't go back and watch that one really good episode in the middle just because she doesn't care, because she watched the second half of the show because of Din Djarin and Grogu and not because of Boba Fett.
I literally watched episode 5 like 20 times because I put it on. I put the second half of it on every morning, and I built Legos. And I'm not ashamed of that.
Oh shit! You're reminding me. My little brother for Christmas 2020, so Christmas a year ago, gave me the Lego Grogu, and then live on YouTube. It should be. Did I take it down? I don't know. Live on YouTube, I began building it, and it took me like 3 hours, and I barely got like the internal frame and then the front of his little jacket, and then I never and that's still in a box, and I've never got. It's still in the closet. I never gone back to finish it. And you just reminded me of that, so I might. Maybe I'll spend some time on YouTube and finish building Grogu.
Well, Brandon,
and in the background, I had the Mando season 2 plan. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chase.
Well, you mentioned that Star Wars has a trend of being two things combined, right?
Absolutely.
This is another one of those things, and I wonder what that means for Star Wars shows going forward, because it is.
We are in the Filoni-verse.
Well, we are in the Filoni. We're deep in the Filoni-verse, and it is.
It's just going to get more connected as it goes.
Yeah, which I love, but it makes it more and more difficult for a casual fan to access, because you need to watch all 7 seasons of Clone Wars, and then you need to watch Rebels, and then you need to watch Bad Batch, and then everything in Mandalorian season 1 is going to make sense, and then season 2, and then you can watch Book of Boba Fett, but you're going to have to watch Book of Boba Fett before you watch Mandalorian season 3. I guarantee it. Because look at all the stuff that happened.
Grogu just shows back up, right? That's going to be weird.
Yeah. And so like, if you're just sitting down like, okay, maybe I'll give this Star Wars thing a try. How about I watch The Mandalorian? I've heard good things about that. And you press play, and then it's going to automatically play the next episode, and you finish season 2, and you're like, boy, I can't wait to see what happens in season 3. Wait a second.
Why is Grogu back?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like the UI of Disney Plus is concerned, are they going to route you to Book of Boba Fett after you finish?
Maybe. And that's Star Wars TV, like this live action TV thing that they're working on. Like, it's kind of built like it's just one show, and you have to watch it in chronological or in release order to get all the details. And I expect that trend to continue. And I would even say the same about like the Clone Wars into the Bad Batch. Like there's a whole arc introducing the Bad Batch in Clone Wars season 7. And then the Bad Batch starts immediately after the Clone Wars. And you can watch them almost like they're one show.
And it's so full of cameos. It's
Absolutely.
Like if you don't know who Hera Syndulla is and you're watching Bad Batch, you're like, why do I care about this kid? Why is this important?
And that is, I have been begging Star Wars to distance itself from the movies. And maybe that's just me. Like, I want to see something different from Star Wars. And then, you know what? Part of the reason that I still defend The Last Jedi is we got something different, even though it's obviously still tied to the original trilogy or whatever. But the backlash to The Last Jedi means that we will never see Star Wars that is different. And I'm not telling you that you should like The Last Jedi. Like it's a very different movie. It's a different Luke than we'd ever seen before, blah, blah, all these reasons. And I don't the reasons that you tell me you don't like it, I probably won't disagree that any of those things is true. But I want to see, I'm really excited about this High Republic thing, and maybe we get a TV series set inside the High Republic that doesn't include any characters that we've ever seen before because none of them exist. Like, the only thing that could overlap would be Yoda.
It's going to be Jedi, though. And the thing that I love about The Mandalorian, the thing that I love about Boba Fett is that we've stepped away from the Jedi. We've stepped away from the heroes of the Republic, mostly. I mean, other than the cops, right? And we're talking about people living their lives in a very unsettled time in Star Wars history. And I think it's in those unsettled times where you can get incredible stories, and we are, right? I mean, you guys were talking about bones earlier. We got meat on the Tusken Raiders, on the Sand People. We that, to me, that's why I watched Book of Boba Fett. It was pretty much the only reason.
I'm going to say that I don't think they're the best episodes, but some of my favorite stuff from the show is the time we spend with the Sand People. And we can bounce back around to the structural issues of it. Like the second episode literally ends in the middle of a flashback. Like, he's asleep in the tank, and then and that's just a fucking terrible way to build TV. Like, and the reason is it's a fantastic way to confuse people. But all of that, like the time he spends with the Sand People, they rescued him from the desert ultimately, and he was a prisoner for a brief time. But they learned this real mutual respect for each other over those episodes, and that's fantastic character development. And it leads into remember what I mentioned earlier about, okay, this being in the Sarlacc messed him up, and he's been a fighter for his entire life, and that shit sticks with you, like your bones hurt, and there's specific things about Boba Fett that they build up, and I think they follow through on a number of them and fail to follow through on several others. And then Adam pointed out a kind of a really lazy, almost dispatch of the Tusken Raiders. And you know what? If they had just shown us it was Cad Bane that came in and murdered the Tusken Raiders for the Syndicate, it would have
been better storytelling.
It absolutely would. Again, I mentioned in our last episode, I don't dislike the idea that the Sand People were all killed. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
I was gonna say, they could have even, if they didn't want to show their hand for Cad Bane yet, they could have even done a hint, kind of like they did with Boba Fett. In the first season of Mandalorian, where after the Tuskens have been wiped out, you see Cad Bane's foot. He has the very distinct
he's got canister boots, and you could see his trench coat, right.
It was something like that, and then it shows him planting the evidence of the biker gang, something like that, after Boba's already found it or something, just for the storytelling that you already know something else is up. Could have been done better. We should all make a Star Wars series.
That's the thing. None of us could ever make a Star Wars show. So that, fans are not writers, but
speak for yourself.
Well, no, I disagree. So Brandon, okay. I don't know if you guys are Reddit people. I'm not exactly a Reddit person. I just read it every morning. And Reddit talked about, or Reddit or Kotaku or one of these major blogs talked about Star Wars does not understand lightsabers anymore, right? And they went through all the sins of the sequel lightsabers. And I guarantee you that the writers of the first episode with the Darksaber, where Din Djarin really hurts himself, they read that article and fixed everything. So we may not be directly writing episodes, but we are the feedback loop is a lot shorter, and somebody out there is listening.
Yeah, and that's I'm not saying they shouldn't listen.
I remember I liked what they did with the Darksaber, because if you go back and watch, I think it's an Empire of Dreams, George, or whoever the fencing master who choreographed the lightsaber fights, what George's direction was for the original one was it was supposed to be that the lightsaber pushes down and is heavy. It weighs 30 or 40 pounds, kind of like a classic silent movies, Knight Arthur and the Round Table sort of thing. And that's what he wanted those sword fights to look. Very classic cinema.
Has anyone here ever held up a steel sword?
Yeah, they're actually not that heavy. They're about 3 pounds. They're not terrible.
They're very lightweight.
Yeah.
Because it's impractical to fight with them otherwise, because they're weapons to kill people. They have to be effective. I've got a really cool looking one on my wall, but it weighs about 6 pounds, and I can tell you, you will not fight with it. It would make a good club if you turn it around. It would make a really good club.
So I work out with a 4.5 pound sledgehammer. 4.5 pounds, but you put 3 pounds on the head, and you're dead after 20 swings.
I don't know. I've seen Final Fantasy VII, and this isn't adding up. The big sword is big power. It's obvious.
So what you're saying is you just need a longer lightsaber, and then
okay.
Well, we have that. We have that 10. Now.
Yeah.
No, if you guys have seen Visions, some people's lightsabers are just longer than others.
What this article that you were talking about? Like they forgot how lightsabers work. Did they mention the sequel or the prequel movies? Because prequel lightsabers move much faster than they did in the original. Like, and the George Lucas's defense is they're big and heavy, but also like everyone fighting in the original trilogy is all old people. So it's like it's not as dramatic and intense as you have two young guys fighting with a lightsaber. But if you have the Force, does that matter?
Well, but that was kind of the point of the article. The point of the article was you have to be supporting this blade with the Force, and the other thing that they mentioned was, and this was what really bothered me, is that you had lightsaber battles without lightsaber consequences, right? So when Kylo Ren and the stormtrooper Finn are fighting, Kylo Ren's face should have gotten cut in half, and when he gets cut in the back, that should have been the end of Finn.
No, but he only got hit him with the very end, right?
Yeah.
That's what happened.
No.
That's not how it worked. No.
Also, by the way, speaking of people with scars on their faces from lightsabers, Black Chrysanthemum's scar on his head is from Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber, because there are only 5 people in the galaxy and they have all met each other many times.
That is my problem with something like I want to see like no single human can really comprehend how vast a galaxy is. And, and if there are so many planets that are populated with people in the galaxy, like there could be 10 Star Wars shows going on at the same time, or 7, there's 7 days in a week. So every Monday through Sunday, you have a different Star Wars show, and Monday it's always the same, etc. You have 7 different Star Wars shows all happening every week. But none of those shows would ever have to intersect. It's that people are like, dude, there's the guy I know. But people get excited when that happens, but it doesn't always make for good storytelling, and it makes the galaxy seem much smaller than it is.
And that's so cool about Mandalorian, is that they're willing to say like, hey, what if we check out just like some regular people on a regular planet that maybe you haven't heard of before? Cool. I guess this world is bigger than I thought, because previously, like, every planet in Star Wars is either one thing or 2 things. Like they're very.
It's a desert, or it's a forest, or it's an ocean.
Right. And like there's just one. It's like, I'm gonna go to this planet. Oh look, here's the person I was looking for on this whole planet. Wow, I guess it's a small planet. I guess it's a small galaxy. And the more we see cameos of people who like, this guy's got to be in this show, the more it's like, I guess there are only a few people in this galaxy. It's not that big.
Or just every Force user who's important is related to the Skywalkers.
Yeah,
every single one.
And when they're not, then they adopt.
I think part of it at the bones is because Star Wars isn't sci-fi, though. It's fantasy. So it takes place in a galaxy, but really it takes place in a kingdom.
Yeah,
well, and we're looking at important people.
Right.
I mean, I'm waiting for the show that's just like a narrated version with like Morgan Freeman talking about the Sand People ecology and the Jawas. And now you can see the Jawas coming across the horizon, and like a 3-minute slow shot of that. I'd watch it.
Yeah. Well, I always thought it was smart in Marvel comics, where you've got these different levels of heroes. You got like the street heroes, and then like national and global, and then you get up to where people are flying around, the Silver Surfer's, intergalactic, and he's just a completely different level than like Daredevil.
That's what they do to justify having so many characters. Like,
Well,
and it makes it make sense.
Well, and Star Wars is at a point, and maybe has been at a point for a long time, where it's got a lot of characters, and it's like, maybe I'm interested in what the Mandalorian's up to, but he is not in the same universe as Emperor Palpatine, right? Like they're on different levels, and that's okay. They don't have to be in the same stories, except for maybe.
We're talking about how big a galaxy is. Like, think of how big like France is, or England, right? Yeah. You have England, and England has a queen, and okay, let's go back 100 years before technology would have liked it. But if we're talking about England, and England has a population, but how many, what percentage of those people who live there are ever going to see the king or the queen? But like, and I just feel like there are so many people who know, like, who could recognize Palpatine in Star Wars, even though it doesn't make like none of a billionth of a percentage of those people would ever actually interact with him.
Oh yeah, although actually your point stands, but as to Palpatine, there in Rebels, Ezra encounters Palpatine via hologram, and Palpatine has his appearance of before he's been lightning zapped, and he's like a kind old man, and Ezra's like, wow, this Palpatine guy, maybe he's not so bad, but then like the mask falls off eventually. But I guess Ezra didn't recognize Palpatine, or at least hadn't seen any footage of him for the last like 17 years or whatever.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we're talking about logic gaps in Star Wars, and that's we're going to spin out on that. So how did that? This is going to seem vaguely unrelated, but I have a point. Did anybody watch Dexter? So specifically, the back in the day when it was on the first time, it did just get revived. But the show about Dexter, the serial killer.
Is this about kissing your sister? Is that where this is going?
No, this is it was the sister that was in love with him, but that not exactly. So see, Dexter, it gets better and better for the first several seasons, and then I think it really peaks in season 4. Blah blah. Season 5's okay. Season 6 is straight trash. But there's one episode in the middle of season 6 where he hallucinates about his dead brother, who was the villain in the first season that he killed. Okay, so there's a whole episode where he's like, Dexter sees dead people all the time. Like, he talks to his dead father, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly he starts to hallucinate about his dead brother. And then this hallucination tells him to go off on this side mission. Excuse me. And then at the end of the episode, after he completes whatever this task was, the dead brother just fades away, never comes back. This is the best episode in that season. It's a 12-episode season. It's mostly trash. This one episode's fantastic, okay? Except it's completely and utterly tangential to the entire plot of the show. Like, to everything else that's going on, they dropped in this other episode that has nothing to do with the greater arc, and Dexter doesn't really learn anything about himself. Like, there's very little here that he can learn and go forward with, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's exactly how I felt about let's drop 2 episodes of The Mandalorian in the middle of the Boba Fett show, and we were already knocking on the weird structure and it just gets I would say the better episodes of the show are near the end of the season, but also like the weird choices about how things are cut together. Like, it's a lot of weird nonsense. Like, why do we have 2 Mandalorian episodes taking up 2 hours of screen time that should be devoted to Boba Fett, because Boba Fett's in the title?
Great point. But also, I do want it to be a thing in Star Wars shows that characters can cross over and meaningfully impact.
And I don't disagree with that. Maybe this bit with the Mandalorian could have been cut in over 2 or 3 episodes, and it's like, okay, so we go spend a minute with him, and then we get back to what's going on, and then everybody comes in, and we have the Avengers Assemble moment at the end, like we did, but we didn't spend 2 hours doing things that weren't related to what's actually happening here.
It was a weird choice. But I have an important question for you guys.
Please.
Are we getting the cops show that they've set us up for? Just like 2 buddy cops in X-Wing saying funny things and screwing up. Is that going to happen?
I think that was supposed to be part of this Rangers of the New Republic show, which we're not going to get because one of the cast members is a garbage human being.
Yeah, okay. So that's what that was supposed to be. Thank you.
Yeah, it was. I think it was going to be the X-wing pilot guys. Now there are 2 or 3 of them, and then like Gina Carano's character, whose name escapes me, but I don't care because it's Gina Carano. She was going to play into that in a major role, and I think that one seems to have gone away. But there are other shows, like the Cassian Andor show, is still supposed to come out this year. I'm pretty excited for that one.
I really liked the cop's presence, not only as a bit of levity, but also like just a glimpse into like what everyday life is like for people. I mean, these are just regular dudes, right? Like they're just.
Do you want to go back and do all the paperwork?
Yeah, right. The concept of them like doing routine traffic stops in X-wings is like, well, yeah. I mean, this is the new regime that's taken over. It makes perfect sense, but it's also something that I hadn't thought about before. And I like getting a glimpse in that. And that's something that in The Last Jedi, even though these scenes are really majorly hated, I liked when we kind of got to see like, hey, what's a casino full of like regular people like not regular people. These are rich people and they're profiteers from war, but also like, yeah, there are profiteers from war. Where are they? Oh, here they are. Like they're in a casino, right? And I mean, wasn't a perfect scene, but I like that we're exploring the galaxy in new ways, and it's not just like, and you know who else was in that casino? Darth Maul. It doesn't have to be that way.
I agree. And there are I don't agree with your point, because like there are the people in a casino, and the whole thing about the rebellion and even the resistance later on is like they can't manufacture their own ships. How did they get X-wings? They had to steal them. It's not what's the best ship for this job. Let's get 20. It's let's buy or steal whatever we can get our hands on. So people are selling ships to the resistance and to the empire, or to the rebellion and to the empire, and then to the resistance and the First Order. And they're getting rich off of it, and now they're hanging out in a casino. Now, did we need that's a mediocre Rebels episode that we didn't need to drop into the middle of a feature film, but I don't disagree that it's interesting content from a conceptual point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Star Wars is a big enough place that shades of gray obviously exist, but my biggest issue with The Last Jedi was that it tried to force shades of gray into the core storyline, which from day one has literally been the bad guys are bad and the good guys are good.
Well,
I think,
except for those Empire people. I don't know if you have friends like this, but I have a friend who just every time we hang out, he's like, the Empire was right.
yeah,
I don't think the Empire was right, but I do think there are thousands of innocent people that died when the Death Star was destroyed by terrorists.
That's true. But I also, I think that the argument that Star Wars is about black and white good and evil is strong based on the original trilogy, but the prequels really alter that, in that the Jedi are wrong and deeply flawed in the prequels, and like, but for their adherence to their dogmatic view of like what's right and wrong, Anakin might have been much better adjusted.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because Luke has a pretty great appearance in the Book of Boba Fett, and he's been like very old school Jedi about it to Grogu, and that's not how Luke was in Return of the Jedi, right? I think it's much closer to the Luke that we get in the Last Jedi later on. And it's like, it's just a weird incongruency there, because the Jedi obviously needed to change, but now he's gone back to the old ways that ultimately led to the downfall of the Republic, and then again to the downfall of the Empire. This is all a chain of events that can kind of be pointed back to the Jedi.
That so we know that it leads to the downfall of school, so yeah, it obviously is problematic, but that's not what the Jedi are supposed to be. But I think the flaw in that logic is tying that like the Jedi are not necessarily the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
The story is about good and evil, but exactly who is the good and who is the evil isn't necessarily as cut and dry.
That's a good point.
Adam, I think what just occurred to me is absolutely it's about good and evil, and we were just talking about institutions, and the institution of the Jedi was flawed and messed up. The institution of the Republic and the New Republic were flawed, but you also had good people within them, and ultimately, hero of it all, Darth Vader, who killed Palpatine, unless something else happened later that I don't know about.
Somehow Palpatine returns.
Somehow.
Well, that's what happened in the old books, and I always found it annoying. So, I mean, even back before we had movies.
In the old books, it was at least explained that he had a plan just in case something happens to me. I've got like plan C through X that can that each one of them can be enacted if something happens to me. And then they didn't really set that up in the new canon.
Plus, also when he comes back, he's young, and that's fun because he can lightsaber fight Luke.
Good times.
But I think let's say on the discussion of like institutions in Star Wars versus good and evil, I think the only important one is that the Empire is pretty solidly, unredeemably evil.
Yes. And I was totally joking when I said terrorists, but I'm an AV guy, and I know there's an AV guy on the Death Star that wouldn't subscribe to all the murder the Death Star or the Empire does, and that guy died. And that's just those are the people I'm feeling for.
Holofields, the Holofield specialists.
Just all the innocent contractors that were just doing their job. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I think the important part is like it's easy to know what evil is, but it is very difficult to know what good is, and that's.
I dig that.
Overall Star Wars. But
okay, does that apply to Boba Fett?
What is Boba Fett good or evil?
Is he light side or dark side?
I think Boba Fett is honorable. I don't think
on all the board games and video games, he's definitely dark side.
And anything that and anyone who is a super nerd and plays D&D knows that you can be evil and still subscribe to a set of rules, and those rules can be based on honorable principles. But you can still, so it's.
Well, as good and evil are points of view. So.
Yeah, it's also probably pretty tough to categorize people as altogether good or evil, right? They might do good or evil things, but it's not like thenceforth they are forever emblazoned with good and evil. I mean, within Star Wars, yeah, that happens. You go dark side and your eyes turn yellow and stuff, but like. Realistically, it's difficult to classify people in that way, and so it's tough to say, "Oh, Boba Fett might be light side now." Like, but that's not real.
This is my question, right? So the Mandalorian, at least from my point of view, and through the story, he is a white hat cowboy. He kills people all the time, and Boba Fett, we were kind of sold as a mercenary or a black hat mercenary kind of guy, and yet. He's kind of being a cool dad in Boba Fett. and maybe that's partially because of his time with the Sand People. Like maybe that was truly a spiritual awakening for him. And so he's going to be like a chaotic good or something. But I think that my proposition here is that they were trying to sell us something about Boba Fett where he's not good, but he's not evil. And he's also not out for himself. So what is Boba Fett at the end of episode 6?
Yeah, that's a great question. To me, and I mean, this kind of comes back to what is this show trying to be? Is it, it is a big risk to say, Boba Fett, that super popular guy that people really like will take personally, whatever we do with him. Let's make a show about him. Like that's a big risk. But then they do the show and they take so few risks
over their body.
Yeah, right. But then they do the show and they take so few risks with Boba Fett that he hardly does anything. He hardly has any agency in what's going on. Fennec Shand is making all the decisions and doing everything and winning the fights and everything because Boba Fett can't be seen to do anything because that would be too big of a risk in a show that was already such a big, a risky show to have made.
Fennec Shand doesn't even do anything until the last episode.
Dude,
like she
does everything.
She leans a lot, and then like in the first episode, she chased the assassin guy, but it's just like I wish we had gotten a little bit more context. Like, I mean, she's in the Bad Batch. You know, if you're deep into Star Wars, you've seen she originated the Mandalorian, but she showed up elsewhere, and she's done awesome things. But like right at the end when she murks the mayor and all the leftover fish guys, she's like, the show for the casual viewer didn't give anyone any reason to think is that Finnick? Is Finnick being awesome right now? And yes, Finnick's being awesome right now. Yeah, like it could have been Boba Fett. It almost should have been Boba Fett. But also, you know, they have this partnership, and that's cool. She's a main character on the show. But I don't feel like even she was given a lot of time to shine in favor of some other stuff.
I mean,
as soon as that happened at the end of that episode, I turned to my fiance and I said, "Why the hell hasn't she been doing that all season?"
Yes,
like
I agree.
Problems, like no.
You know, and
she
killed them all like she's a straight up assassin, which is a thing we haven't really seen in Star Wars. We've seen badasses, but most of the badasses are stand up fighters. You know, like she kills all of them before any of them knew she was even there. Like
right, that's like Cad Bane. Cad Bane will kill everybody, but he's not going to be sneaky about it. He's going to be showy as hell.
Yeah, like he walks 3 miles through the sand so that everyone in town knows he's there before he shoots them.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are slightly younger than me, so I think that you had more of a context for Cad Bane. But when he showed up, and he looks great in blue, and he is this cowboy gunslinger. I think he was like a killer of Jedi or something, right? I looked him up a little bit.
Well, like, a little bit, yeah. Not probably not what he's known for now, but that's what, like, his first thing in the Clone Wars is he steals a holocron and kills a Jedi.
Dude, he infiltrates the Jedi Temple.
Yeah,
he rules.
And we killed him. So like we took one awesome character and we kind of killed him through making him boring, and we took another, I mean, at least visually very appealing character, because I don't know him the way that y'all probably know him. But I was like, whoa, that Cad Bane dude, like I could see him hunting down some New Republic Rangers and being
to be fair, he is a walking Western trope. That is something that works for me, but it doesn't work for everybody. And also Cad Bane is like one of the most, it just feels like it's really on the nose as far as a naming. But no,
General Grievous.
Yeah, like Cad, that's fair. It's not out of character for Star Wars for sure. But he's a really interesting character, and he does a lot of cool things, especially in the cartoon. Like, well, actually, only in the cartoons and the comic books, because he's never been in live action before. But yeah, he's a big part of the Clone Wars show.
But and he was also in a comic. I think he's in human years. I don't know how long a Duros, especially a cybernetically enhanced Duros, is supposed to live. But he's 70-something years old.
Yeah, and Boba calls him an old man.
Boba Fett, so he's old, and like it's okay for like characters to die off in Star Wars. It's possible. But I also pose the question: we saw him laying on the ground, and there was a blinking light on his chest. Is he really dead? He's half robotic anyway.
And we just pulled someone out of the Sarlacc.
Right. They leave that door open, but like I would rather just let him die. That's okay. It's okay for
it's okay. And you know what? We know he didn't kill. Did you guys watch? There's a post-credit scene. We know he didn't kill Cobb Vanth. Like he just shot him in the shoulder and he's in the back to tank. Mm-hmm. He killed the shit out of that deputy that wouldn't shut up.
Yeah, that dude's dead.
that dude's
no
dead.
one's saving him.
Let's say Star Wars needs to become okay with killing off people, and I think
I agree.
With the Last Jedi, they maybe got timid with it for a while because they killed off a lot of people very suddenly and very unceremoniously. And at the time, and even now, I likened it to the writer just deciding, look at all these cool toys that everybody likes to play with. I'm going to play with my own. And I think that might have made them too timid to kill people off, but it's okay. You can start killing people off. Like, Cad Bane has had his story. He was really cool in the Clone Wars. He was great. Let him be.
I don't know why they made the whole clone army out of Jango Fett instead of Cad Bane, because that dude is the best bounty hunter in the galaxy easily.
Because it was Palpatine. He's anti-alien.
The Empire is xenophobes, but
yeah,
and and we don't know. Like maybe it's particularly difficult to clone Duros or something. We don't know.
Right, sure.
I don't know much about their physiology.
But what I'm getting at is Cad Bane is a far better bounty hunter than like anyone.
You said it yourself. He broke into the Jedi Temple and stole a valuable artifact by himself. Like,
yes, he also fought Quinlan Voss and Obi-Wan Kenobi at the same time
and did not
isn't
die.
dead and
Yeah.
probably actually beat them.
Well, that's when my fiance asked me kind of like who it was, because I was like, when he showed up, I was like, is that? I think that's Cad Bane. Holy cow, that's Cad Bane.
That's what I said about Black Chrysanthemum too, and he's only been in comic books so far.
Mhm.
But she was like, who's that? And I was like, he's probably the best bounty hunter in the galaxy, which is kind of problematic in a show called Book of Boba Fett.
Well, I was hoping he would show up in this show to settle the score of who's the best in the bounty in the business.
And I don't think we did.
Right. Well, I guess Boba Fett beat him, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
sure. With the help of his super.
The same thing happened with Din Djarin and Heavy Mando, whatever his actual name is.
Paz Vizsla.
Din Djarin,
voice of Jon Favreau.
Let's say Star Wars has another bad habit of like, we're going to go through this long fight sequence and you're going to lose handedly, but then the bad guy's going to gloat for about 2 seconds too long and you're going to trip him and then the fight's over. You won.
Yeah.
Like, it's a movie trope, I get it, but it happens all the time in Star Wars.
Yeah, it was also. I mean, it was a conflict that was on its way anyway, because when Boba Fett was a kid in Clone Wars, and he was kind of trying to make his way as a bounty hunter, Cad Bane was one of his mentors. So I mean, this was kind of a and I'm glad that they know each other. I kind of was thinking, I kind of thought Boba Fett and Chrysanthemum knew each other.
They do. They've met in the comic books.
But in the show, they were very vague about that.
Yeah.
They weren't like, oh, hey, nice to see you again. They were like, growl. And that was it.
Also, we've had at least I have had some questions about it in the past. Like, what does it actually take to kill a Wookiee? Because Black Chrysanthemum takes some punishment, and he walks like he's still standing. Wookiees are terrifying. Wookiees are terrifying.
Adam, say it again, man.
I said we already know the answer to that question. It takes a planet to kill a Wookiee.
That's expanded universe joke. In the old canon, a moon fell on top of Chewbacca, and that's how you kill a Wookiee. But yeah, because in episode 3, there's the battle on Kashyyyk with the droids, and we see a lot of Wookiees blowing up droids, but we don't really see a lot of Wookiees die. And no, I'm just saying, Black Chrysanthemum gets shot a lot, and no human in Star Wars can take that much punishment.
Have y'all ever seen a dog that's been bred with a terrier? You can shoot them, and they won't stop until they are done. So it seems like Wookiees, unlike humans, like you shoot a human and they go down, they say "ow." Wookiees, I don't think that it's not that they're getting hurt. I think it's just that they don't.
Oh no, he's probably messed up. He deserves a soak in that bacta tank. But he was, it's not like he was even disabled by it. He was still able to stand up and fight back.
Right. Well, and this is my biggest beef with that scene was like, here he was like completely like on his knees about to die, and then Boba and Din run out and grab him, and then like, congratulations, we saved you, and then he's up and running again. Like just
that's fair. Okay, okay.
Apparently
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, it's just that I guess when they dogpiled him, like he probably just bit them all. That was the most holy shit moment for me when they were fighting him in Jabba's palace. Was like he bit the guy. And,
yeah,
Wookiees got teeth.
Yeah, apparently, we learn in the Rise of Skywalker, even blowing up a ship that a Wookiee's on doesn't kill him.
Does it? Or was he on the other ship?
No, he was on the other ship, of course. But it was like, no, he died, though. You just changed your mind later.
I mean, he does get shot in the Force, or Chewbacca gets shot in the Force Awakens, and he seems kind of messed up, except maybe not. But, so where are we now? We come together.
Finally talking about the last episode.
Yeah, the big finale where we, Avengers assemble, and then everybody fights the fish people, and it turns out there are a lot more of the Pikes than anyone thought there were. Shocking. But then before I do that, what's everybody's thoughts on the finale? Chase, go ahead. You go first.
It just felt like kind of Bush League. It was like, I mean,
For people who don't know how to sports, what does that mean?
it was kind of like low stakes.
Okay,
like
yeah.
and like low not necessarily even low stakes, but like a low level of expertise, and like everybody's just out there running around with their pistols, and they're like, we're gonna make our last stand here, and they climb up on this thing, and they're gonna do the sniper, and then they're like, never mind, we aren't, this is nothing. And they're like, well, then why do we I already don't particularly care about these characters. I'm not particularly invested in their heroic last stand. And not, like, it wasn't even that heroic. It didn't even accomplish anything. The Rancor did the whole fight. Everything
The Rancor
else
did all the work.
failed. Well, okay, there was some cool stuff with Boba and Din, their jetpacks. They really seemed
it was
pretty
a
tough.
fun Mando team up.
Yeah, it was neat. But it just seemed like
Seeing them back to back with their guns got me cheering.
That was pretty cool. But even before the battle started, they're in the ruined cantina, and they're like, we need to formulate a plan. Our plan is going to be really cool and smart. And they're all talking like they're talking about something very sophisticated, but then they're just like, we will stay here in this ruined building. That is our plan.
That is
They
our
don't
plan.
have a plan. Like I was
speaking of the ruin,
So you wanted
R.I.P. Garza Whip. I loved Garza so much, and then
pour one out for a real one.
Yeah, they blew up Garza and all the other.
That hurt.
Yeah,
that
dude.
hurt
Yeah.
because the Garza Flip show could have been a thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jennifer
she was
Beals,
an interesting,
dude.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. I mean,
Right.
I know that's the actress, but I mean, she had a strong presence, and to me, I want to address my biggest gripe with the show.
Please do.
The mod gang. They start out with non-lethal weapons, which is the most insane choice I can think of in the Star Wars universe. B, where did they get paint? No one else has paint. And C,
no one else has paint.
They're just like, they're a cool idea that's so forgettable. Like here's your gang, and they're a bunch of kind of kids that are lame. And now I can see Adam's brain like working. So I'm open to it. But but there is one thing I want to call out. I have a hidden disability. A lot of people do. The lady with the prosthetic arm, I think it's always cool to see some representation out there. So I wanted to call that out.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Absolutely.
Some positive representation of prosthetics for a first time in Star Wars, because it's usually like, you've lost your arm and now you're less human. And it's like, well, what if actually maybe it's something you want and like it is favorable or not a bad thing, right? I agree. I think that's good.
Adam, were you going to talk
where they got the paint?
It looked like you had some wheels started.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna. My opinion on them is really interesting. My fiance, who's not super into Star Wars, really liked them as characters, but even she agrees, like, their scooter things, like, they were obscene and ridiculous and didn't really fit for Star Wars, and I could have forgiven that. That would have been fine, but every time we see them on the scooters, they are the least climactic method of transport in Star Wars.
The slowest
and this
chase
is a show where
ever.
Yeah,
the slowest chase ever. Every time they, like, when in the battle scene, like, they come up and the guy tries to do like a back wheel street sort of thing and like park, and he just goes like, eh. And it's very obvious they have real scooters and they just kind of CG'd out the wheels, because every time they drive, they're going really slow and they're wobbling on the sand.
But what if they had played it for jokes? I would have forgiven it if they had just always had the scooters like falling over or breaking down. I would have forgiven that.
Or maybe Boba
effect.
just said, "You need a faster scooter." Like,
or if they had a sound effect, it was like, ding, 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 ding.
If
I was like, okay.
If everyone else in the show like was in on this joke that no, the scooters are actually crap, and they're just doing it for some weird like, hipstery bullshit reason of like, no, like they're cool because we built them. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's all forgivable. But the fact that the show goes very try hard of like, no, these are serious street cred.
Yeah. And they spent so much time like chasing down the mayor's secretary.
Oh God.
In such a slow chase.
Television.
not only was it bad, but also why were they doing that? Oh, to catch the secretary to find out, hey, where is the mayor though? Like, is he like, do you have his address book handy? Like, that was the whole point of the chase, to catch this secretary. Like he's not some like extremely skilled driver. He's driving in his little.
Okay, so here's the question: did we all just miss the joke?
I doubt it, but maybe.
I think it was just bad.
Okay, let's talk about this secretary guy for a minute, because I laughed out loud when when he comes up at the end and they're pinned down in the destroyed bar, and he's like, I negotiate for a living. Let me go out and talk terms with these people. They know me. They won't shoot me on sight. It'll be fine. So then Boba says, all right, let me write down my statement. The guy doesn't read the statement, and then he walks out and says the Daimyo Boba Fett would like to discuss terms here. And then he says, the terms are fuck off. And it's just like, okay, so I was cheering because I thought Boba sent this guy out like to just get plucked, to be a diversion, basically. Yeah. Then, and it's just like, maybe that's a little cynical on my part because I kind of wanted them to shoot the guy. But no, I just like that got a non-ironic laugh out loud moment because he basically sent this guy out to the what's the word? Anyway, he sent him out to the fish people to get shot so he could go do something else, and I thought it was great.
Yeah, and that was a Boba move.
Absolutely.
Right? Finally.
Right. Yeah. Well, also, he's a character that everybody in the show despises, and I'll be honest, like, I despise the character, but that is why I love him, because he's supposed to despise.
Like, and he's supposed to be useless. Like, and no, yeah, it was great. I appreciated the Twi'lek presence in the Book of Boba Fett, and they weren't just folks. It wasn't a sexy like dancer for no good reason, and it wasn't just like, oh look, there's a Twi'lek standing off in the corner. Like, there's legitimate characters that have a lot of dialogue, and I appreciated that. Something that we didn't really get in the sequel trilogy was a lot of aliens that we recognize. Yeah,
and here's a male Twi'lek who's actually not just ugly old Bib Fortuna on Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you super nerds. Were they slightly psychic or something? Because when the two Twi'lek servers come back to Garsa Fwip, she says, "Did you get anything?" And they say, "No, nothing." Was she asking about an order? It almost felt like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not sure.
Well, I noticed they came in their helmets, and every time one of the crime folks came in, they asked if they wanted to take their helmets, because when they took Boba Fett's helmet, they brought back his helmet with their payment.
Yeah, they filled it full of money.
So I think they went to ask, do you want us to clean your helmet, which was their code for are you expecting tribute from us? And that's what they were saying. They're like, no, they're not here for tribute, which is why I think her response was then puzzled.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
The other thing about the last episode, like a big chunk of it is the fight scene, and there's plenty more we can talk about there. But I did want to make sure that I mentioned that the thing about the final episode that really kind of encapsulated the series for me was we check in with Boba Fett, and he's chatting with his pals, and he's like, Maz Espa has really thrived under our rule, but Spice is ruining it all. And it's like, none of that has happened. We haven't seen any of that. We haven't seen anyone in Maz Espa benefit under your rule except the cyber millennials. And we haven't seen Spice do anything bad. And in fact,
what does Spice do in Star Wars, right? It's Spice is a thing from Dune. Right, so that's and it's in Dune. It's a psychoactive mutagen, but
it can be used. It can be refined into a healing agent, and it was at a premium in the Clone Wars for that purpose. In addition to being an illegal drug, but it did have an above-board use, which could be good in Tatooine. Like when Cobb Vanth just kicked it over, it was like, well, I mean, I know it's drugs, but also some drugs can be helpful. Don't just like throw it away. But yeah, I mean, it was just like that they just came out and they told instead of showed big time. And
I totally agree.
And I mean, that's something that they had enough time in the show to devote a little bit of time to. Again, I mean, I keep coming back to like, what are the ordinary people up to? We spend a little bit of time in this random town of ordinary people, Cobb Vanth's town. We spend a little bit of time on the streets of Mos Espa where the cyber millennials are hanging out. And they're like, we don't have any jobs because there aren't any jobs. And it's like, okay, so that's going on. We have introduced this idea that there are problems, and we've introduced some ordinary people that can be the media by which we grapple with these problems. We see Boba Fett solve problems. We see Boba Fett embrace his role as a leader and maybe even as a hero. But it just doesn't happen. He just tells us in an offhand comment, hey, we're doing a great job here, by the way. Let's not ruin that. And I don't care how many buildings my Rancor knocks down. Nothing can jeopardize the great progress we've made here. What progress? We need that, you know. So
those are the two missing episodes.
I guess so.
Yeah, someone in the filing system accidentally loaded the first two episodes of Boba Fett of The Mandalorian season 3 instead of those two, and then they just rolled with it.
It was the episode where, you know, Boba Fett goes out and like does the charitable thing and then busts another gang or whatever. Like, we've made great progress, but no, that all happened while we were watching Grogu be cute.
Right. But I did want to put that out there because I do have to go. So I just wanted to make sure I threw that out. Also, that even though I think the cameos get overused in these Star Wars shows, Cad Bane showing up did get me hyped. And I always love to see Ahsoka. I guess I'm a sucker. I guess they got me.
Dude, I was irritated with her when I saw her in cartoons, and I'm bored with her as a human, or as a, you know, whatever she is.
Yeah. But you're old.
I'm old. No, that's the thing. And that's what I think. One of the things that comes out of this conversation is I'm a Star Wars generation set apart from you guys. And I came into Star Wars, like I said, at a weird time. I came in when the original trilogy was
the first quiet time, when the original trilogy was all you had for 15 years.
Yeah, and I had the videotapes and I watched them, and I guess my whole thing about this part of the extended universe is that it matches up with my feeling of Star Wars as a kid, which was I'm gonna play with all these weird toys, some of which come from the trilogy, some of which are just like from comic books and like weird sources.
The N1 Starfighter.
The N1 Starfighter. I didn't have an N1 Starfighter because I hit that when I was too old.
Right.
Like, I didn't have toys at that point. So this, you know, when you get middle-aged, you get a second time to buy all those expensive toys, and I have. But what I like is I get to re-enter the imaginative universe, because I felt like the prequels just weren't imaginative to me, and maybe it was because of my age. But
could be. That's interesting you say that, because I feel like the prequels were very imaginative in that they introduced, like, here's a new ship design, here's a new alien design, here's how the whole world looked before it was.
I mean, say what you want about the prequels, any one of you, you know, like whether you like them or not. A lot of what you say probably wouldn't be wrong, but the one thing that a lot of people can agree on is there are a lot of cool stuff in the prequels. Cool stuff. And that's like that includes spaceships, vehicles, animals. You know, there are a lot of cool creatures in the prequels.
Boba Fett and the Mandalorian are doing a great job of redeeming those.
Yeah, absolutely.
But by contrast, the sequels are like, yo, the new TIE fighter, it's white. It's still a TIE fighter.
It's a TIE fighter.
So Chase, we're coming up on 90 minutes. Chase has to go. So let's wrap it up here. Does anybody have any closing thoughts about the Book of Boba Fett? Adam, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I need to dip out too, so good timing.
Okay. Any
final thoughts?
Yeah, please.
It had 2 great episodes, and I guess looking back
2
on
out of 7.
2 out of 7. I think looking back on it, I really appreciate a humanization and a depth of the Sand People. Loved that part.
Me too. Yeah, probably not my favorite episodes, but my favorite contributions to Star Wars as a whole.
Danny Trejo as a cameo. Like, I wasn't here for that episode. I'm sure y'all mentioned it. Super cool. Rancors, again, it's a lot about redeeming or looking at the other side of things that we've looked at before. So I think that that's great. And overall, jokes about Jawa sex are great. So
Ew.
Amy Sedaris was a treasure.
Amy Sedaris is a treasure.
always.
So
Pelimoto.
all of those cameos. I think when I look back, let's say after the next season of Mando or something, I'm going to say the Book of Boba Fett was a good way for me to get my Star Wars fix between Mando season 2 and Mando season 3, and episode 5 kept me entertained for 2 weeks. That's how I'm going to look back.
I mean, and that's probably, honestly, that's kind of where I feel about it too. Like, there's a lot. I think the show overall is probably a disappointment, but there's a lot of good stuff in the show. You know, like and as we've said about even the movies we don't like or specific parts of the shows we don't like, each one of these things, anything Star Wars gives us, has something to like about it, and it rekindles the things that, you know, like they always hit on the things that I like about Star Wars, and they, you know, even when a movie or a show doesn't work overall, like each one of them hasn't failed to hit on things that I like about Star Wars. And the Book of Boba Fett's no different. You know, like I will probably not spend a lot of time rewatching this, but I think it's fine. You know, like, and I'm looking forward to more Boba Fett, and even this Boba Fett, I think they've made him more interesting than he was in new canon for sure. You know, they've added a lot of things about the way he behaves, why he does, you know. Is that more interesting than the materials he was given in Expanded Universe? Arguable. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, like I didn't dislike this show, but I won't spend a lot of time with it. I'm definitely, you know, it scratched my Star Wars itch, and I'm looking forward to more Star Wars. But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up there. Thanks everybody for coming on. You're more than welcome to. Any one of you is welcome to come back on again. Be sure to check us out. You can search Engine25 reviews on YouTube. We're also on Spotify. And we will, I'm going to try to put together an episode for Peacemaker on HBO Max next weekend. So keep an eye out for that. And, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great afternoon.